Welcome back to Almost a True Crime Podcast, a product of Bitch Pack Media. We are your hosts, Taryn and Madison. Listener discretion is advised due to the mature content and the amount of cuss words we say. You've been warned.
Hey guys.
Hello.
We're back.
Welcome back to part 3.
Yes.
Which we're recording 2 weeks later.
Yep, we are welcoming ourselves back as well. We got fucking busy, guys.
I'm telling you, it's probably annoying, but this play shit
Yeah.
ain't no joke.
No, because it just
Takes up all the time.
So then
all the time.
Don't want to do anything else.
Yeah, this is like our first week of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then in a couple weeks it's just every day
except Friday.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We're doing what we can here. Which is not much.
That's all I can
In our
commit
defense,
to.
we are not late. We're only late on the Patreon. This should have been out weeks ago, but honestly nobody asked about it, so I wasn't really rushing for it.
Most of the people that have the Patreon, I think they just forget.
I agree.
That they even have it.
Except for, I think, Emily. I think she's like the only one who really keeps up with it.
That really likes us.
Yeah, I know.
Doing it for you, Emily.
And only you. Okay. Should we just get started?
Yeah.
Okay, so we left off, to remind Taryn and everyone else.
Yeah.
They had their trials. They all three had their trials. Damien and Jason's trials were tied together. And Jessie, Miss Kelly's, was by himself. Jessie and Jason were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And Damien Eccles was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Damn. Which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's just like Scott Peterson. But worse. It didn't even look like he did it. But to sentence someone to death for something that you for sure
just so crazy
are not sure of. No one is certain. You can't be, because he didn't do it. Insanity. So that's where we left off. So Jason was taken to prison, he said, in a complete state of shock. He said he tried to be brave and accept that prison was his new normal. He just tried to adjust immediately. He's like, okay, well, this is my life now. I just live.
As well just got used to it.
Live in prison forever. Whatever. Fine. Shortly after Christmas, a counselor mailed Jason a letter apologizing, saying that Michael, who accused Jason in court of telling him that he committed the murders, was a client of his, and they had discussed the murders in a session, and then Michael had made that whole story up about how Jason told him. She was like, I really want to apologize. The story that he made up was from a conversation we were having. You definitely didn't tell him that because I told him that.
Right.
The counselor said he tried to testify in court to what happened, but they would not let him. Shocker. Towards the end of his first year in prison, Jason's lawyer filed a motion for a new trial based on the fact that the prosecution and Judge Burnett met to discuss strategy. And when someone is meeting with the presiding judge, both parties have to be present. Yeah. It was actually a very big charge. You can't do that. Well, the person decided that this was... Okay, how am I wording this? So the person deciding this is Judge Burnett. So he's ruling on his own conduct, basically. So obviously he's not going to say, yeah, I fucked up.
It doesn't make any kind of sense.
No, how can you make a decision on that when you are directly the one involved?
Yeah.
So he said, well, yeah, no, you're not going to get a new trial. Jesse spent a lot of time in solitary because he acted out a lot. I think he's the youngest and obviously the most challenged. He was cussing, fighting, things like that. He said he actually didn't mind, they call it the hole, because he got to be alone. But he said he did eventually adjust to prison life. Damien was immediately taken to death row and stopped receiving his antidepressants, cold turkey.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he had a very hard time adjusting. He was also in a very corrupt prison where he said he was raped and beaten.
Oh my gosh.
The prison actually ended up being investigated, and 3 of the officials ended up getting fired.
Oh my God.
Inmates had weapons and drugs and all that shit, but they said they couldn't.
Just the new black.
Exactly. They said they couldn't substantiate Damien's claims, even though they were able to prove a bunch of bad shit was going on. It's yeah, that's happening, but whatever you're saying didn't happen. In February of 1996, the higher court struck down Jessie's appeal. They said the confession to be consistent with the jury's verdict despite all the inconsistencies. The judge said the jury would have still probably found him guilty even after the time of death was revealed, so that part didn't matter. He was like, you don't get a new trial on that because that would have changed nothing. Just before Christmas 1996, the higher court also struck down the appeals of Jason and Damien for essentially the same reason, saying that they were going to find you guilty despite all these things you're trying to bring up.
Okay.
So in 1996, this is like all starting to blow over. Nobody really cares anymore. Paradise Lost comes out. So this was the documentary that everyone was participating in as it was going on. So like direct participation from all involved. It's like an actual documentary. It was HBO did it. Like straight up from the jump. It was an HBO documentary called Paradise Lost. It comes out near the end of 1996, I think, just as people are starting to forget about it, and it just exploded. Like I said, I had interviews with Damien, Jason, and Jessie, along with family members of the accused and family members of the victims. It showed the small town culture. It like featured all, like the soundtrack was Metallica, things like that, really showing what's going on. It was like a big, I had no idea. They didn't offer their own thinkings or conclusions or anything. They just included the sentences the boys got. And people were floored, as you can imagine.
Oh, my God.
Because, I mean, I don't know how big of news this had gotten on its own.
Right.
Can you imagine reading this for the first time? Like, you're watching it and you're definitely thinking.
That's like how a lot of, like, the Menendez brothers, stuff like that. That's like what's happening now.
Yeah, like you're watching this and you're thinking, there is no way they charge these people.
This is just like making a murderer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the end and they're like, oh, they're all actively in prison. Yeah. You're like, what the fuck? So, like, people had thought they missed something or missed a part of it. Because, like, where it explained, they're like, where did they explain how the murders happened? Because how are they in prison with what we have seen? There's just no way.
Exactly. It's wild.
People thought that by the time it came out, like, okay, the boys are in prison at the time this came out. They thought they definitely had appealed and gotten out of prison by then. They're like, they're definitely out free now. No. 3 people from California wanted to make sure firsthand that was happening. They're like, if they're not free now, they like have to be. And that was Burke Sauls, Kathy Backen, and Grove Pashley. They drove to... What's wrong with your... You can't do it?
My ears are itchy today.
Ooh.
Weird. Something weird's happening.
You're going rogue over there. Okay, so those 3 drove to West Memphis in October of 1996 and interviewed Jessie, Damien, and Jason. They interviewed Jessie's lawyer, who was now the only one still trying to prove their innocence. Everyone else had, like, essentially given up.
Right.
And they put all their findings on the website, wm3.org, which is how the West Memphis 3 was born. That's where that name came from. There were message boards, there were fundraising, they had merch, like all of this dedicated to getting them out of prison. Damn. And the boys were not allowed to watch this documentary, which is so weird.
I don't get how you can legally do that.
Either.
Like, you can't lose all your rights once you're in jail.
Yeah.
That, like, I just don't get how...
You can't watch something you are in?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Not at all. So, after the trial was over, Vicky Hutchinson, again, that bitch, asked Ron Lax about the reward money and that she was going to sue if she didn't get it because she felt like her son, Aaron, had, like, broken open the case. She was like, listen, I know I said I didn't care, but, like, you wouldn't be here without me, and there was a reward, and I want it.
The child mentioned a reward. And a check. No, I didn't.
That is my favorite movie of all time. I can't wait. If it drops 10 degrees lower than this, it's time.
I know.
It is time.
Oh my gosh, I always want to be fucking Martha May Whovier.
Oh my God. That'd be a great costume.
I know. I'm like, should we do like a Grinch costume this year?
We should do a Grinch podcast Christmas card. That's what we should do.
Oh, yeah. Let's fuck our noses up.
Yeah. Okay, so Vicky Hutchinson's like, I'm going to sue the fuck out of you if you don't give me my money. She said that police had questioned Erin without her around and that she never agreed to have a tape recorder placed in her house, and Glitchell lied about that. My voice cut out in the middle in a very weird way.
Sounded like you were crying.
It did. So yeah. She said Bryn Ridge told her they would take care of her hot checks if she testified, which is like all those bad checks she was writing that she was about to get in trouble for. They were like, listen, if you testify, we will take care of those. Then a few months later, she called and said that Mark Byers was on Maury and was acting so out of control that they needed to watch it. And she does not understand how 3 boys are in jail when there is more evidence that John Mark Byers did it. You think you don't have a large part?
Yeah, you had nothing to do with that.
So yeah, those were not like side by side. She was complaining, and then in the present time that was happening, John Mark Byers was on Maury, and she was like, "You need to get this man under control." She said she was then thinking of calling Channel 13 and stating that she perjured herself, which is also like, I feel like nobody gets in trouble for perjury, so does it really fucking matter?
Yeah,
I feel like you just have to assume that everyone is lying.
Right. Yeah,
like, and then, not everyone is telling the truth.
And then you just kind of like figure out what you want to go with.
Exactly. Then... She said, I'm calling the news and I'm telling them that I lied. So.
What? Like, you're not doing yourself any favors at this point.
No. So Ron Lax calls her in to finally talk to her. She agreed on August 17th to do a taped interview when she said she actually had no idea what happened at the SBAT. She said her boyfriend had broken up with her that day. She drank an entire bottle of whiskey and then remembered going somewhere. She doesn't know how she got there, what was going on, or how she got home. So directly conflicts with all the details.
Yeah.
She had given.
The very specific details.
She said she woke up in the front yard with an empty whiskey bottle in her hands. She said she just said what the police wanted her to say, and she said she just wanted to tell Damien, Jessie, and Jason that she was sorry.
It's a little fucking late for that, bitch.
Too little too late. Rick Murray, which is one of the kids' dads, Stevie Branch, Christopher Byers, Mark Murray, I think. Rick Murray said that when he was watching the Maury special, he heard Mark say that his alibi was airtight and he picked up Melissa from work. I'm wrong. This is Christopher Byers' real dad, I think, is Rick Murray.
Oh, okay.
Because John Mark Byers is not his real dad. Okay, so he said that his alibi was airtight and he picked Melissa up from work, but when Rick and Mark were talking at the funeral, Mark never said anything about picking up Melissa from work, and also that Melissa had been addicted to heroin since she was 12.
What?
Yes.
Which how does a 12-year-old get heroin?
Don't know. How does a 12-year-old use heroin?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
There's a lot there that I'm not sure about.
And there is a lot of stuff about the Byers that I'm going to go through. There's even more than one I'm about to tell you, but it was getting very lengthy. So the Byers moved out of town, claiming they wanted to live in peace while they grieved. However, they were anything but. They left a trail of bad checks when they moved.
Oh my God.
Like, what a common crime for the time, though. Can you imagine just writing bad checks?
Yeah. Now you just overdraft
your account. So they left a trail of bad checks, and then they were both arrested for taking $20,000 worth of antiques from a home near their new house. They posted bail and pled not guilty in September of 1994. 2 weeks later, Mark was arrested again after instigating a knife fight between 2 teenagers. So he's like watching these teenagers fight, and he's
fight each other to the death.
Literally. By the end of October 1994, it was being reported that the Byers' neighbors had a restraining order against them because Mark had hit their child with a fly swatter so hard that it left bruises. Then, the woman's house who they burglarized, her RV mysteriously just straight up exploded in her driveway. This spurred more interest in John Mark Byers' background, where they found out that when he was a teenager, his parents called the police because he was threatening them with a butcher knife. A jewelry store said Mark and Melissa worked for him, and $65,000 worth of jewelry went missing. By the end of 1994, the Byers were facing 12 misdemeanor charges for the bad checks they wrote, and in 1995, Mark was found guilty of instigating the knife fight between 2 teenagers. Just Jesus like mind your own business. Just walk away.
Yeah.
Just don't insert yourself. Then, in another shocking turn of events, on March 29th, 1996, the police were called to the hospital where Melissa Byers was pronounced dead. There was no evidence of trauma on her body, and the state police immediately got involved and said it looked like a possible homicide.
Oh my God.
They interviewed the neighbor who called the police. The neighbor said Mark had called him and said he couldn't wake up Melissa and to come try. The neighbor asked, "Why are you not calling 911?" And he said, "Just come over through the kitchen door." So he gets there. Melissa is like clearly dead at this point. She's laying naked on the bed, arms limp, mouth open, eyes shut. He tells Mark to start CPR and he'll call an ambulance. He also said that Mark had a girlfriend named Mandy who was standing outside the house when the ambulance arrived.
What?
Yes, so also John Mark Byers' girlfriend is there. He also said they were having family troubles and Melissa had been taking pills. The neighbor also said Mark wasn't like hysterically concerned.
Yeah.
And when Ryan, his other stepson, Christopher Byers' brother, asked if she was dead, Mark said no. And then he tried to put pants on her. Like, she's gone. She's no longer with us.
Yeah.
The neighbor said that was like immediately obvious. Like, there is no coming back from this. Ryan literally sped away from the scene before the ambulance got there, so he's no longer there. And John Mark Byers told the neighbor that she overdosed, but they were going to accuse him of something. But he wouldn't say who they were. He's standing there just like rambling like a crazy man. He's like, they're going to say that I smothered her.
Yep. That's what they're going to say.
They're like, what are you talking about? Who are they? Your wife is like literally being loaded into like an ambulance. Like, you have other concerns at the present moment. Mark did not have much to say about what happened to Melissa. He's just said that they took a nap and then he couldn't wake her up. After 6 months, it was reported that they could not figure out why she died, the physical or legal reason, so they couldn't list suicide, homicide, natural causes, anything. They had literally no idea.
What?
The sheriff's office had a press release where they said that she did have drugs in her system, but not enough to be lethal, and the case would remain open, but the autopsy report would be sealed, which is weird. Shortly after that, he went on trial for the burglary charge. The judge agreed to not put him in jail if he paid the lady the $20,000. And then he moved and he never came back to any of the 5 counties in that judicial district. So he's like, I won't do anything if you pay this lady and you leave and never come back. Which is funny because the Arkansas Constitution, like, actually in words forbids banishment as punishment. Like, you can't just banish people
from your state.
But they sure did.
Oh, I guess that definitely is a thing, though. Like,
yeah.
Some states, like, you're not allowed in the state of whatever.
Yeah, like, you can't be here anymore.
Oh, my God. I want to get banished from a state. How hilarious.
It wouldn't be so funny, like, we're trying to plan something, like, I actually can't go there.
Wouldn't it be funny if it's like, I'm actually not allowed in Indiana anymore?
Literally.
That's so funny.
We should start telling people
We're
that.
like, what if it's a state? I'm trying to think of, like, a state you always end up having to drive through. What if, like, what if I was banished from Michigan?
You just
like,
couldn't.
I could never go to, like, the airport, the casinos, the dispensaries.
You have to fly out of Toledo
Express. Never go see the Red Wings.
There was a girl
that's so
during
funny.
Taylor Swift's tour that was banned from the football stadium for life.
I feel like I saw that.
She's like, I have to go.
I'm glad that didn't happen to me. Little Caesars. Definitely could have. That's so funny.
That is funny. Okay, so the judge is banishing Mark from the state of Arkansas. Or no, just the 5 counties. And the judge told him that if he ever got in legal trouble again, he would switch his plea from no contest to guilty, and then he would charge him on all of those things he's letting him go on. Well, after several other legal troubles, obviously he was not going to knock into legal trouble, the judge made good on his promise, and in 1999, John Mark Byers called what he thought was his friend, but he dialed the wrong number, didn't realize it. That number that he dialed belonged to the personal cell phone of a state trooper.
Oh, for fuck's sake, what a dumb shit.
And again, John Mark Byers has no idea. He's inviting him to come over and buy drugs.
Can you imagine?
No!
Being that state trooper and be like, okay.
So the state trooper went over there. He was like, all right. Bought the drugs and then immediately arrested him. He's like, I am a state trooper, you idiot.
Oh my God. Like, he didn't even notice it wasn't who he
Nope.
thought he was calling. He was like, whatever, a deal's a deal.
Literally. He's like, all right, come on over. Like, exchange the drugs, and immediately was like, you're under arrest for selling drugs.
That's like that one, like, is it from Reno 911 or whatever, when it's like the dash cam and she's making him do all those things. She's like, you're a good dancer. He says, only when I'm drinking or something. Yes. She's like,
That's one of my favorite scenes from Reno 911
it's
ever.
so funny. It's only because I'm drunk.
So, the arrested him for selling drugs. He still didn't get time for that, even though he was supposed to get 5 years in prison. But when that other judge caught wind of him getting away with more crimes, he decided to switch his plea to guilty and sent him to prison for 8 years, which is still
nothing.
Considering all that you have done, that's a little less. He gave a rambling prison interview where he said he had a brain tumor and was 100% disabled. He's 100% disabled. Just making shit up.
Not 1% of you is able.
No, not one. He said he had no criminal record before this, and the stuff from his past was a different John Mark Byers. There's 2 John Mark Byers beseeching his name. Yeah, he's like, that was
identity theft is a crime, Jen.
That wasn't me. It's a different John Mark Byers, born on this year. Lives in this city. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
He's running amok in this town, and it's all falling back on me.
It's like...
It sounds like some lie I would say. Like, holy shit, can you believe someone is doing this in my name?
Oh, my God. So, Melissa Byers' parents also gave an interview where they said Melissa was planning on divorcing him because he was messing around on her. He obviously had a girlfriend named Mandy.
Yes.
But he said he wasn't getting another divorce. He's like, we can do whatever, but I cannot get another divorce.
I can't sin like that.
No, I can't do that. I can't go to hell. Oops. My iPad. My cat's iPad. She uses it to play fishing games. All right, where were we? We already did that. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, they said Melissa was planning on divorcing him, but he didn't want to get a divorce. They said, so Melissa's parents said they were supposed to pick Christopher up from school the day that he went missing, but John Mark Byers said he would, which was a different story that he had stuck to this whole time. Mm-hmm. John Mark Byers got paroled in 2000 after serving 18 months of his 8-year sentence. I don't know what this man has on everyone.
Yeah, what?
I have literally everyone's, I think. It's the only thing that makes sense. So one of the website's founders, the WM3 website, was so invested in this case, they signed up for a course on evidence analysis. And when they were...
They
were getting into this. When they were explaining the case to their instructor, Brent Turvey, he became very interested and pointed out in the crime scene photos, there was a piece of cloth clutched in Michael's hand that was never investigated. Like, no one had ever brought up the fact that, like, he's literally clutching onto something. The injuries to Christopher were much, much more severe than anyone else, and it was done by someone full of rage. He said it was very obvious. He also said he looked for the belt marks on Christopher that John Mark Byers said he did that day that Christopher went missing. He was like, I beat him with a belt before he went missing. And he said he found some markings that could have been caused by the belt, but they were so severe that Christopher would not have been able to sit or ride a bike after that. He's like, there's no way that kid was using his ass for anything. Like, he didn't get up and ride his bike around town with his friends. Like, that was not happening. Related to that, the filmmakers decided to make a sequel to Paradise Lost that focused more on advocacy. So the first doc, they acted more out of entertainment. Like, they wanted this to be more editorial. They wanted to reach people in power who could see what happened to Damien, Jessie, and Jason and do something about it. Mm-hmm. They focused on John Mark Byers, mostly because he was the only one in Arkansas who would be willing to talk to them.
Of course he would.
Yeah, he'll talk to anyone.
Dumb shit.
And the people in Arkansas were so angry about the first documentary. But John had been more than willing to be front and center, and at one point he referred to his wife Melissa's murder, which was never called that.
Oh my God, what the fuck? What a dumbass.
He's an idiot. He passed a polygraph and high-fived the tester and said, I knew I was innocent. But also, the polygraph was prefaced that John was on so many prescription medications that it could skew the results. Like, his body is not acting in a normal fashion. So this could basically mean nothing. They didn't get much political support for their cause after Paradise Lost 2 came out in 2000, despite the interest and favorable reviews. However, Metallica did come out and say that the case needed to be re-examined.
Hell yeah, how cool.
And actually a lot of musicians took this personal. It was basically said that, like, because Damien listened to this kind of music, he was a Satanist and a murderer.
Yeah.
So they took this as an attack on their art. So a Seattle-based band actually went and spent time with Damien in prison and put together a compilation CD of different bands called Free the West Memphis 3 and used it to raise awareness and proceeds to help free them.
Damn.
Right before this CD was released, Pearl Jam, who I was supposed to go see last weekend and they postponed due to illness, which has to be the Rona. There's just no other thing you postpone a... If you don't know who Pearl Jam is, huge band. They never ever tour in the United States because they hate Ticketmaster. Like, it's a full thing. They don't like it. They never do it. So they finally struck a deal with Ticketmaster. They went to like 5 cities. That's all they did. We had tickets to one of them. Didn't get to go. Allegedly, it will be postponed. I'm not holding my breath. So anyway, this is a big band. So Pearl Jam was performing a concert in front of 10,000 people. He gave a third encore and said, "This song is for a friend in West Memphis who I haven't met yet, but I'm going to see tomorrow." The next day, he loaded up in a limo and visited Damien on death row.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy?
I have goosebumps.
Meanwhile, their appeals are failing, and basically all they have left is something called Rule 37, which is where a convicted person is allowed to argue that their trial had been unfair. Usually, ineffective counsel is like a dead giveaway for like an unfair trial, like he should have whatever. Right. However, this is heard by the same judge who sentenced them, so it's very hard to get. Because like the judge was there the whole time, and they sentenced you, so they're not...
Yeah, they're not going to be like, oh, I was wrong.
Yes. But when someone on death row does a Rule 37, the judge is held to a much, much more strict standard and has to sort of explain every single point the convicted person brings forward. And there were a few lawyers who were working on Rule 37 for the boys for free because they also had no money. Mm-hmm. The big thing these new lawyers brought up was why Damien's lawyer allowed him to participate in a documentary during an ongoing trial. That's when they learned how little money Damien had and how little money the defense lawyers had, because the lawyers had to front the money for their case. The state was not receptive to help them. So they had to take out bank loans, like personal loans to fund Jesse's defense. Yes.
That's insane.
The Rule 37 hearing took almost an entire year, where Judge Burnett denied it and denied Damien's request for a new trial. While his new lawyer, Mallet, was not having that, and Stidham was still fighting for Jesse. So now they're getting like a ton of help from other legal experts now that this is all starting to fall together. Mallet filed a rarely used writ of error called coram nobis, which basically means that the case had an error so big that it has affected the very core of the entire trial. Like that one point ruined everything.
Do they have to say what the one point was?
So Mallet argued that Damien should have never been put on trial because he was technically mentally incompetent when he was on trial, which was backed up with Damien's suicide attempts, the notes from Ron Lax and his assistant who spent a lot of time with him talking about paranoia and hallucinations. And to back it up, Mallet filed records that showed Damien was already deemed 100% mentally disabled by the Social Security office and was receiving Social Security benefits.
Oh, what the fuck?
Which is no joke.
Yeah.
Because they're not giving benefits.
Yeah, no, they do not want to give you anything.
No. So he was receiving Social Security benefits for being mentally disabled, which the courts give a lot of weight to that because they're not decided lightly. Nobody had brought this up at his first trial. Nobody has said Damien is getting Social Security benefits.
Mentally disabled.
Yes. Gloria Shettles said that she requested the records, but they were not released in time to her. Then Damien's lawyer, Val Price, submitted an affidavit that said, had I been aware of that information, I would have represented Damien much, much differently. Stidham had focused on advancement in DNA testing. I mean, it's been 8 years. They've been in prison for 8 years, and the technology had come a long way, so they requested to retest some of the evidence because it could yield more precise results. The prosecutors objected to having evidence retested, but Stidham reminded Judge Burnett that a new state law allowed inmates to seek retesting of materials that could exonerate them. On March 15th, 2001, nearly 2 years after Damien's Rule 37 denial, the Arkansas Supreme Court heard oral arguments on Mallet's appeal. There were a ton of supporters there. Mallet covered 2 points. Damien should not have been permitted to participate in the documentary because that should have been a conflict of interest. The Mallet said in the original 37 hearing, Judge Burnett did not give reasons to all of the points the defense raised, which he should have had to because Damien was a death row inmate. Like, he didn't respond point, which he literally has to because of the death row thing. The Supreme Court agreed with Mallet on that point, the Rule 37 one, and sent his original Rule 37 case to be reheard. Well, they sent it back to Burnett, who just copied and pasted the Attorney General's findings as a rebuttal to every concern and denied him a new trial again. So Mallet again appealed the decision because the court did not make its own independent review. It just copied and pasted the findings of someone else. I know. So while Damien is dealing with this, Jesse's lawyer is still trying to get the DNA retested. It had been 9 months since he requested a hearing to have the evidence retested, so they haven't even looked at anything. They're trying to be allowed to look at something. And Judge Burnett had not said anything about it in 9 months. He filed the original request in January of 2001. Burnett did not respond or set a date until November 2002, almost 2 whole years later. So Jesse had spent a third of his life in prison at this time. He said he remains hopeful and now knows to not just confess to a crime if you did not do it. Good thing to learn.
Yeah, that's a solid lesson.
Damien continued studying different religions on death row and in 1999 got married to a woman named Lori Davis. Jason was studying a lot in prison. He learned computers very fast, which allowed him to work some white-collar jobs while in prison. He had an impeccably clean prison record. He took college courses and hoped to go to law school. He also had a girlfriend who he met while he was in high school. She had since graduated college and had been admitted to law school. He said his girlfriend Sarah and his faith and the support of so many strangers kept him hopeful. He continues to believe that the right thing will prevail, and he refuses to be hateful or spiteful or resentful towards anyone who put him there or keeps him there.
Jesus, bigger person than I am.
Yeah, God.
I'd be like, actually, fuck all
of you.
And when I get out of here, it's going to be everyone's fucking problem.
Exactly. Jesse hoped if he ever gets out, he wants to have a giant party.
Hell yeah.
Obviously. Damien wants to disappear with his wife and never see anyone again.
I guess.
And Jason was hoping to work in activism if he ever got out. In 2008, Judge Burnett again denied the request for a new trial.
How does... I don't understand how it's right that it just keeps going to the same judge.
I don't know.
Like, that doesn't make sense.
They said the court find that Eccles' DNA testing results are inconclusive because they do not raise a reasonable probability that he did not commit the offense. That is, they are inconclusive as to his claim of actual innocence. Circuit Court Judge David wrote in his 10-page order denying the men's request for a new trial. In his appeal, Eccles argued that newly analyzed DNA found no trace of the defendants at the crime scene, but Burnett said he agreed with the prosecutors that the absence of DNA did not equal innocence. Proof of actual innocence requires more than his exclusion as the source of a handful of biological materials that is not dispositive, that's not the word, of the identity of a killer. Burnett also said that even if he agreed that the new DNA evidence should be heard in court, he would still deny Eccles' request for a new trial because there was not compelling evidence that he would be acquitted. Which is just so weird. How do you know? How do you know that?
I don't understand any of this.
The ruling was appealed to the Arkansas Supreme Court, which heard oral arguments in the case on September 30th, 2010. So we are almost full adults at this point.
Yeah.
And they went to prison the year we were born.
Oh my God.
In November 2010, the Arkansas Supreme Court ordered the hearings to decide whether new DNA analysis and other evidence not introduced at the 1994 trials could lead a reasonable jury to acquit death row inmate Damien Eccles, as well as Jason Baldwin and Jessie Miss Kelly, who are serving life sentences. The Supreme Court rebuked Circuit Court Judge.
Yeah, take a breath there.
Circuit Court Judge Jave Burnett. I'm really just fucking this all up.
It's all right. Come on.
The Supreme Court rebuked Circuit Court Judge David Burnett for not holding a hearing on the DNA evidence before rejecting Eccles' request for a new trial in 2008. Burnett had ruled that the crime scene DNA evidence, which shows no trace of Eccles or the 2 other men, was legally inconclusive and not enough to prove innocence. The court wrote, while there is a significant dispute in this case as to the legal efforts of the DNA test results, it is undisputed that the results conclusively excluded Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly as a source of the DNA evidence tested. Prosecutors maintained that the absence of their DNA wasn't enough to prove 3 men are innocent and that a jury could convict them on other evidence. Attorney General Dustin McDaniel said, "As I've stated before, it is a testament to the fact that our system affords inmates multiple opportunities to be heard that this matter remains in court. We respect the decision handed down by the Supreme Court, and my office intends to fulfill its constitutional responsibility to defend the jury verdicts in this case." The court also said that the new hearing should focus on all evidence that could prove the men's innocence or guilt, not just the DNA evidence. Eccles' lengthy appeal includes affidavits alleging juror misconduct, claiming that the jury considered a confession that Miss Kelly made to police. That confession was never introduced as evidence at trial because Miss Kelly recanted it and refused to testify against the other 2. So they're saying the jury definitely considered that, and they were legally not allowed to. It was not clear when the new hearings would occur, and that the court ordered that a new judge be reassigned to the case because Burnett was elected to the state senate.
Oh, cool.
This motherfucker.
Great. Let's keep moving him up.
Oh my God. Burnett, who was at the Capitol for freshman orientation for state senators, he was at orientation, said he had not heard about the ruling Thursday. He said, "I made my opinion and they made theirs. That's the way the system works. I did what I thought was appropriate at the time. Times change and circumstances change, and I guess they had a different view than I did." Yeah, because yours was wrong.
Right.
So, Attorney General, basically, they're like trying to get a new case so that they can be acquitted. Because, not a new case, new trial. Because a new trial starts everything over. So, you can be found not guilty. Like, it could be gone.
Yeah.
So, in a stunning turn of events, in August of 2011, the West Memphis 3 were freed from prison completely. State officials believed that the judge was going to order all new trials for all of the defendants, and that they really just wanted to avoid that because they thought it really could end in an acquittal, which would erase everything that they said that they did. So they approached the boys in an all-or-nothing deal where they could enter Alford pleas and plead guilty to lesser charges, first and second-degree murder as opposed to capital murder, while verbally stating their innocence and be freed. No parole, no anything. You just can't get a new trial, and you will always technically be guilty of this crime.
So crazy.
Or they could remain in prison, wait several more years for these trials to be moved through the system, which may or may not free them at all. They could be found guilty again because time has not worked out for them well in this
I'm not sure I would trust that.
Me either. So all of them had to take the deal or none of them could take it. It was like a full...
Oh my gosh.
Like, you all have to do this. Like, I'm sure Jason would immediately do it, but like, you can't if everyone else doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
On August 19th, 2011, the 3 men were taken together to a hearing that lasted less than 1 hour. Judge Lasser then sentenced them to time served, a total of 18 years and 78 days. And they were all given a suspended imposition of sentence for 10 years. They all signed their papers, and they all walked out in regular clothes, free to go. Free to go. Jason was extremely hesitant to take the deal. He still maintained that he did not want to plead guilty to a crime he did not commit, but eventually agreed to it because they were trying to execute Damien, and it was just not fair, and that was not justice at all. And he felt the need to agree to save Damien's life.
Wow.
Which is
insane.
A hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Because he was like, because they're all innocent, but he for sure, he's like, nothing to do with this. Both supporters and opponents of the now men, were not happy. People still believed they were guilty, and those who supported them wanted them exonerated for the crime they did not commit. However, officials made it clear that the men would not be exonerated until someone else was found guilty of the crime. In August of 2021...
That's so... whatever. I mean, I guess that's kind of what they signed up for.
Yeah.
Taking that deal, so...
I guess, but it's just like... Okay, but are you actively trying to find who did it?
Or like, are you just like over the whole thing now? That's why they rushed him to take the deal.
In August 2021, 10 years after their release from prison, Eccles reiterated that he would not give up seeking any evidence that remained so it could be retested to exonerate the 3 and lead to those actually responsible. In response to Eccles' request, since early 2020 that remaining evidence undergoes specialized DNA testings, officials told his legal team that such evidence had been lost or destroyed years ago in a fire. of which there is no public record of a fire destroying the evidence.
The convenience of it all.
Isn't it? A Freedom of Information Act request was submitted, and the receiving attorney said any evidence testing would have to be ordered by a judge. Eccles' attorneys filed a motion for declaratory and injunctive relief in the Circuit Court of Crittenden County First Division and asked for an expedited hearing. In December of 2021, Eccles' team was able to review remaining evidence and plan to move forward with new testing. In June of 2022, a judge rejected January request for DNA testing of the evidence. Eccles' lawyers appealed the case to the Arkansas Supreme Court in January of 2023. The state said in February that the appeal should be dismissed because the case was initially filed in the wrong county, Critton rather than Craighead County, where Eccles' conviction was entered. In March 2023, Eccles' team responded that such a dismissal reason is irrelevant because both counties are within Arkansas' 2nd Judicial District Circuit. In April of 2023, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Eccles' appeal for DNA testing. I could not find any update on that, so I don't know which that shit takes forever. It's extremely possible there isn't one.
How crazy.
2023. This is still going on in our present living day.
They're never going to figure out who did it. Whoever did it is probably dead by now.
Never. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
There is a movie about this case starring Reese Witherspoon and Colin Firth.
What's it called?
I have no idea. I gave up typing it. West Memphis. Is this the internet? What am I even doing? Yeah. No. These are my tabs.
Is this the internet? Hello, internet?
I have been very boomer. Reese Witherspoon. West Memphis 3. What's it called? Devil's Knot. That's what it's called.
Oh, interesting.
Which is also what the book was called that I got literally all of this information from. And you can watch this movie for free on the internet. You can watch it on YouTube for free, Pluto TV, Tubi, the Roku channel.
Dope.
Reese Witherspoon plays one of the moms. Colin Firth plays Ron Lax, the guy who worked with them. So, yeah.
Wow.
That is the story of the West Memphis 3. Happen. I know. I literally cannot believe this is still going on. I'm glad they're not in prison anymore. Fuck that.
Seriously, that's insane.
It's insane.
God, I just can't imagine having to just sit there knowing you just like did not
do it.
I think it would drive me insane. Like actually drive me mad.
Yes, like
in the head.
Exactly.
Like, I would be unwell.
Because how
I think I would end up convincing. Like I would start to believe it too. Like
yeah,
that's what happens. I think if someone tells you something so much
because there's so much weight in our judicial system. Mm-hmm. Like how can this happen? That's what happened to Jesse. He's like, yeah, the machine said I was lying.
Yeah,
and I don't understand because I don't think that I did it. But why does this machine say that I'm doing it?
Seriously, that's what would happen to me.
After 18 years, I think I would seriously lose my mind. Like, how can this be happening? Like, I'd know.
Be like wiping shit on the walls, lose my mind. Yes. Like that kind of insane.
Like, I know I didn't do it.
I have no memory of murdering
happening?
Anyone, but everyone says I am, and here I am, so I must have.
I truly don't understand.
Oh my God, that's just crazy.
And now they're out living their lives. Damien does a lot of interviews and stuff. I think you can... I think Jason really did go into activism. What are you doing? Why?
Well, we're about to be done.
Yeah, we are about to be done. Do you want to say anything to our fans? My mom says hi.
She said
hi. Do you think we were bothering her? You think that's why she shut the door?
No. She hates when we're down here and she's up there.
That's true. All right.
All right. Well...
We will be back.
Good job. That was a good one.
Thank you. It felt weird not doing it all at the same time.
I know.
But I was really out of breath last time. Yeah. I had to stop.
Just had to end.
I barely made it through this one. Oh. Yeah, that was one I had wanted to do for a really long time. But I didn't do it because there just wasn't enough information about it. And then I found a book and I was like, actually.
There just wasn't a lot.
There just wasn't. There's just like a little small taste. Not that much information is out about this case. So yeah, I think you can still watch that Paradise Lost on HBO.
Hell yeah, I for sure want to.
And there aren't a lot of documentaries about that anymore. Like it's literally them.
Yeah.
Talking to the camera, which you don't. Probably because you're like not supposed to do that.
Yeah, I don't
Any
understand
competent
how...
lawyer would say, well, yeah, no, we're not actually going to participate in an HBO documentary in an active case. So, yeah, that would be very interesting to watch. And then the book I read, Devil's Knot, there's 2 more of those about it, I think. The one is fine. The one is fine. I can't do 2 more of that.
Yeah.
It's so depressing. They always pick like the Making a Murderer kid, Brendan Dassey. It's always someone like that.
Because they know.
They can get what they want out of that person.
Yep. They're like, oh yeah, here's some easy money.
Here's your weekly reminder to never trust the police. They never, ever have your best interest at heart.
Nope.
They want to arrest you.
Unless you are a...
affluent white man.
Yep.
That's about fucking it. Just never voluntarily give information to the police. Ever. Never. I can't reiterate that enough.
No,
Don't
never
do that. You know it's fucked up when that's like the first thing they tell you in law school. That's how you know it's for real. Don't be telling the police shit.
Yeah.
Ever.
They really don't deserve any of it.
No.
They don't deserve you.
They want to take you and ruin your life. And that's it.
And that's all. And that's it.
We'll see you next week for regular length, different episodes.
Who's to say?
Who is to say? I do have one queued up, ready to go. I don't even know
what I have up my sleeve.
Very short. But it was too long to be a one-shot, and it was just too interesting. So
whatevs.
That's what we're doing.
We'll take what we give you.
All right.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at AlmostPod. If you want an additional episode every week, you can find us at Patreon at AlmostPod.
If you have a case you want us to cover, throw it in a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find merch and all other information at bitchpackmedia.com. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.